screen share really quickly. Get started. Okay. Can everybody see our first slide? Just thumbs up if you can see it. Awesome, thank you. Well, welcome to tonight's info session on our Racial Equity Grant for individual artists. My name is Melissa. I'm the manager of grants and community engagement here at ArtsBuild. I also have on the call with me, the Zoom with me, James McKissick. He is our president of ArtsBuild. So tonight, the agenda is we're going to do a welcome, and James is going to give an overview of what we do each day at ArtsBuild. And then I'll run through the slides of the grant overview. And then we're fortunate tonight to have two artists on the call with us, Charlie Newton and Pablo, who are REGIA grant recipients. And they're going to talk about their experience with the grant, and they're going to talk about their projects. And then we'll open it up for questions and comments. You'll notice that the chat is already active. I've put links in there and will continue to do so through the evening. You're welcome to ask questions throughout and at the end when we open it up. Okay, I will hand it over to James to talk about ArtsBuild.
Yeah, so welcome everyone, and it is great to see so many friendly faces, people who have gotten ArtsBuild grants in the past, people who are interested in our grant making and our programs, all coming together to just share about this new funding opportunity that we have. So I just wanted to share a little bit about ArtsBuild. We are a local nonprofit organization that has been around for 53 years. Much of what we do is grant making. So we fund artists, individual artists, arts organizations of all different sizes. And we also fund leadership and training and professional development opportunities for artists and arts admin people and people who have careers in the arts. We do lots of work in arts education. For example, we work to send every student, kindergarten through 5th grade, to have an arts-related field trip each year. We have a fellowship program for college students who want to work in the arts. And we do lots of teacher training and teaching artist training. We also do advocacy and leadership development and shared services for the arts sector. So we're excited to have you with us tonight and for you all to learn more about ArtsBuild. Feel free to ask any questions as we go through these slides. And I'll go to the next one, Melissa.
Thank you, James.
Yeah.
So our Racial Equity Grant for individual artists, we for short call it REGIA. It's a lot easier to say. It's a grant program aimed at increasing arts and culture produced by diverse artists who are reflective of our community. We are very grateful to 3 foundations, Benwood, Footprint, and Lyndhurst Foundations, for their economic support for this grant program, as well as individual donors have made a huge impact in the funding for this grant. So we want to express our appreciation. So why REGIA? So after some review of our grant making practices, we recognized that only about roughly 20% of our funding was going to BIPOC artists and BIPOC-led arts organizations. And we knew that needed to change. And so we worked with these 3 foundations to secure funding to push forward this REGIA grant program. Another thing that we did with the Chattanooga Design Studio is create a mapping system through our that is located on our website. And what it does, you can go there and see the impact of programs and grants and engagement of ArtsBuild throughout Hamilton County to give you a sense of how we're trying to diversify and open up arts and culture throughout the entire county. And so that's how REGIA came about. I'm just going to go through some nuts and bolts about the application. It does open August 1st, this coming Monday. It's a very straightforward application. It's through our grant system called Submit. And it's very logical. You just, it's step by step. You answer the questions as it pops up. The nice thing about the Submit system is that you can do a video or you can type out your application, which is great for different type of learners. And so we love the system that we're using now. So the application is going to be open for about 11 weeks until October 14th. We do have the option of you contacting us to review your draft application before you submit it. And that way we can give you some tips on how to even improve your application, particularly if you're new to writing grants. We can just help guide you to make it even more clear and concise and things of that nature. On this slide is my email as well as in the chat. And so you're welcome to email me or call me, and we can go through your application and get it ready for submission. And then the end of the timeline is at the beginning to mid of December is when we will make the grant award announcements. So this round, so each round is designated for a specific identity group. So in 2021, it was for artists who identify as Black or African American. In 2022, this current year, is for Latino, Hispanic artists who identify as. And then this round, in which we're calling FY23 in the 2023 year, is for artists who are Asian, Indigenous, Native American, Pacific Islander. And then we look forward to 2024 as we're fundraising for BIPOC women artists. And so we're very excited about that. So we have that in the pipeline. This grant is for emerging and mid-career minority artists living and working in Hamilton County. And the grant does require that you're of age 18 or older. So the eligible artistic disciplines is pretty vast. So we accept applications for visual artists, 2D, 3D installation, fine craft, media, film and photography, performance, so dance, theater, vocal, and literary. The thing about literary is we don't actually get a lot of applications in the realm of the literary arts. And so we're hopeful that we'll get more this round. In terms of funding amount, the award is up to $10,000. So we have 5 grants up to $10,000. The nice thing about this grant is it does not require matching funds. So that makes it more accessible to artists when there's not a matching funds requirement. The funding restrictions. So the grant activities need to take place in the 2023 year. So January 1 through December 31st. So the things that the REGIA grant cannot be used for is capital improvements, such as building or construction, seed money to create new organizations or fundraisers. That said, there's many things that the grant can be used for. The 3 categories, funding categories, are artist work, equipment, and professional development. So it's really a wide range of activities that you can encompass in this grant. And I've listed some below. Some major ones are artist fees, which is wonderful, supplies, major equipment, rental fees, marketing, production, lodging, documentation. So the full gamut of things fit within those 3 main categories of artist work, equipment, and professional development. So some additional grant information that we just wanted to present is the grant activities and outcomes need to be clearly stated, accessible, and able to be documented. The artist is required to either present a federal tax ID or a social security number. The artist must be based in Hamilton County with proof of residency. And you'll notice this picture here is of Kofi and Jasmine. They were recipients. Kofi was a recipient of the 2021 REGIA grant. They went to Ghana for professional development. They went to local schools to present their storytelling, what they learned about storytelling in Ghana. And this is a picture of them. I believe this one is where they were at the East Lake School. So in terms of writing your grant, the first thing you would do is you'll read through the guidelines very thoroughly. The guidelines, when you go to our website, to the grants page, you'll click on it and it'll take you Monday to the REGIA grant. And the guidelines are listed before you even start the grant. So you can read through them to check your eligibility, kind of get all your ducks in a row to make sure you know what you're doing before you jump into the application. As with any application, grant application, we suggest though we have an 11-week span in terms of submitting the application. Start as early as possible so you have time to figure out the full scope of your project or your grant objectives, and you can consult with us here at ArtsBuild as you go along. So give yourself plenty of time to really delve deeply into the application. And just know that we're always here to support you through the grant writing process. You know, our role at ArtsBuild is to help build art leaders in Chattanooga. And part of that is supporting and mentoring and writing grants. And so that's what I can do to support you while you're going through the process of figuring out the REGIA application or any application, grant application we have available. One of the biggest tips and tricks of writing a grant is being clear and concise, not to use very flowery language, just be really to the point, the A to Z of what you're doing. And double checking your budget. So making sure your budget matches your narrative so that when we read the narrative, we can look right up the numbers, break down and understand the A to the Z of that. And then, you know, always take one last proofread before submitting. That said, if you do submit and you have a moment of, oh my goodness, I forgot something major, you just reach out to us and we will open it back up for you. So nothing is lost, you know. The grant scoring is very straightforward. It's a 100-point scale. As you can see, we've clearly laid it out in terms of 30 points for strength and quality of grant proposal. Did you lay out your plan very clearly? Is there a point A to a point Z and things of that nature? The second aspect is, are the funds being used thoughtfully? Can we see the breakdown of where the money is going and it makes sense on paper and intangible moving forward with the grant? And then planning is in place and the project timeline is realistic. And, you know, that's a 10-point, but that's very important to a successful grant facilitation. It's just having that, all that planning in place, having your timeline, your timetable, and knowing that maybe it might change, but you have that initial one. And as you're moving through your grant facilitation, if that timeline does need to change throughout the 2023 year, all you have to do is reach out to us and we'll make that note of change. The other one is budget is reasonable to implement. Outcomes are clearly stated and attainable. Plans for documentation and assessment strategies are adequately addressed. And so in terms of the last one, if you need support in what documentation means, what assessment strategies are apropos for this grant that you're submitting, just reach out to us and we can kind of talk you through it. Sometimes people who apply to our grants, this is their first time applying. And so we'll support you in walking through the process. So in terms of reviewing our grants, and this holds true for almost every one of our grants, the grant panels, the grant reviewers are comprised of community members with diverse backgrounds and ArtsBuild board members. So that holds true for all our grants. We as ArtsBuild staff don't make the decision on who is funded and who isn't funded. It's community members and also our board members. What is different with this one, the panel meeting is different because we take the top scoring applicants and invite them to a panel meeting in which they answer questions from the panelists and provide comments. And then the panelists make funding decision based on that. So we're gonna move into where I'm gonna stop screen sharing. I'm gonna allow Charlie and Pablo to talk about their projects and their experience with the REGIA grant process and facilitation. So let me.
Okay, should I start?
That sounds great, thank you.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name's Charlie Newton. And first I want to say thank you to Melissa and James and ArtsBuild and all, the board of ArtsBuild and everybody over there, because I'm really proud of what you guys are doing now and how you're breaking up the grants to target certain particular groups every year, different groups every year. That way, instead of the past having just one small grant, you can stretch it a little further. So my experience with the REGIA grant was really, really great. So what we did was called an exhibition, a huge exhibition that I spent over a year working on, called the Black Bible. And the idea was to start up conversations that we normally don't get a chance to have about spirituality and that type of deal. And my practice is Southern African-American spiritual artist. And so I use my background. I'm also a minister, as well as I run an art school for underserved youth. So it offered an opportunity for me to actually use all of my powers and do my best with this project. So I'm very thankful. The application was pretty easy. I always have some problems with applications because the language is slightly different. But ArtsBuild was very helpful, and I could call and get help anytime that I needed. So my exhibition was at Stoveworks. It started, I think it was from January the 13th originally to February the 30th, but they ended up stretching it out a couple of more weeks into March. And we had, over that period of time, we had really hundreds of people to come through there. And there was other events associated with it, like an artist talk and a conversation with professionals in this field about the work and the exhibition. And so, a lot of great things happened because of it. Churches brought groups to the event, and I had a chance to speak to people that I normally wouldn't even ever meet because of that exhibition. So it was a very good experience. It enabled me to go to the next level with my work, and that's a powerful thing to do. I had, like I said, a whole year to work on that exhibition, and that's what I needed. I needed time more than anything else. And with my grant, I bought most of the grant. The bulk was spent on art supplies and documentation. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. If anybody have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer.
Charlie brought up a great point about the application. So we at ArtsBuild are utilizing a new grants program. And so what we've done is even more streamlined the application to make it even easier, hopefully, and that people can record versus type and things. So hopefully we've made it even more simple for folks so you can just like get through it and it's not as cumbersome.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you hear me? I'm not
Yes.
confused. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
My question is, before you applied for your grant, did you already have the exhibition, like was already taking place, or did you like have the grant and then find the location for the exhibition? If that's what I'm trying to say.
No, yeah, I was already working on my project a year before this grant came available. So the grant allowed me to really put my best foot forward. And it's important to me to always be working, so, I'm always working. I always have projects going. So the grant was like, okay, maybe I can, use this grant. So in answer to your question, no, I already had the project. Now I'm just trying to find ways to fund what I was already working on and attempting to do.
Got it.
Yes. I think it's more powerful when you do it that way. Yeah, because it's more honest. It's more of an honest, because when you think about the grant, one of the purposes of my exhibition was to bring diverse communities together so that we could have a real conversation about art, basically. And we're just using the Bible as a springboard for that conversation, and to show what we are capable of doing at the highest level. And that grant enabled me to present an exhibition at a very high level. Any more questions? Okay.
I had a question which
Sure.
Charlie, maybe you or Melissa could answer. Did you say that there was a round where certain applicants would have to present to a panel before a final decision is chosen? I was just wondering about that process and what that was like.
Yeah, I can talk about that. And Charlie has experience in that realm as well. So what we do for all of our grants is grant reviewers, community members, and ArtsBuild board members, they review all the applications and score them. And then for the REGIA grant, the top applicants are invited to either in-person or Zoom panel meeting. And what that means is we bring you on for about 10, 12 minutes. You will have the questions that the panelists want to ask you beforehand, so you can think about them and not be on the spot. And so you will answer those questions that they present. And then they have the opportunity to make a decision based on hearing the answers. And so it's not super high pressured. It's just a way for the panelists to get clarification so they can make an even more informed decision in terms of funding. And then if Charlie wanted to talk about the experience on the other side, because he has been on the other side of, answering the questions and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's just knowing, knowing what you're doing, knowing, and that's why I believe if your practice that you're already engaged in um, uh, is probably a better sell, for a grant panel because you know everything about it and it's honest. So the questions are usually easy, and it's really simple and easy. So
Thank you for that question, John. Any other questions for Charlie before we move on to Pablo? We will hand it over to you then.
well, thank you. Well, I'm going to have to leave because I have another meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Hello.
There.
Hi, everybody. Man, I'm as I sit here and get ready to talk to you, a story comes to mind for me. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was on my undergrad at NC State, and I'll never forget being undecided as to what I wanted to study. And then saying, screw it, let me just do Hispanic studies. I figured it would be easier for me. But it didn't turn out to be that way because I quickly learned that writing papers was not my thing. And I'll never forget one Spanish teacher coming up to me and saying, hey, your writing is not good. It's too flowery, I guess, kind of like what Melissa was saying. And I always struggled writing. It was just always horrible for me to the point that in high school, I was like in the bottom 5% of my graduating class. I had like a 1.8 GPA. So I say that because I'm just surprised that I'm talking about writing a grant because I would have never thought that, right? I was always just very behind when it came to writing and when it came to, I would just get caught up in too much details. So I'm really surprised that I'm here talking about a grant that I wrote because if you would have known where I come from academically, you would never assume that I would be doing this. And but I did. And here are the main things that when I look back helped me write a grant. And I say that for anybody out there that's kind of struggling with that, because I know what that's like, and I know how frustrating it is just to write 3 sentences. Like I'm that guy who's always trying to look at synonyms, and it's really hard. But the thing that helped me was using programs like Grammarly that helped me stay concise and to the point, and just setting a goal, right, as to how much content I wanted to write in each descriptions. I also looked up a lot of YouTube videos around project management. Just people, whether it was construction or the nonprofit world, they all had similar tips as to really summarizing a project and kind of what each project is designed to do and all the kind of execution of the project. So that was really helpful for me because I'm not a good writer. And come to find out, I got approved. My project is around a film. I'm doing a film that tells a childhood story. By the time I lived away from my mom, and are longing to be reunited. It's by far the biggest project I've ever done in my life. Like, it involved a lot of traveling to the US-Mexico border. It involved traveling to Guatemala. It involved so many components that I would have never had. So I was able to do a lot of that really because it was also I was speaking the piece that I'm doing is geared towards a community that I'm already serving, and I did that around mental health. which is kind of what the project's designed to do. It's designed to be a tool to help children that are wrestling with the emotion and just the psychological impact of being away from their country and away from their parents. And so it's been quite a journey. I kind of like what Charles said, having all these months to prepare and do whatnot has been really helpful for me. And just keep in mind that even after you write this project or your proposal, there's still going to be a lot of things that come up, throughout the project. So give yourself that wiggle room. I do some community development work, and so one of the things that I wanted to kind of emphasize in this project was the continuity, and I think that's something that I was really trying to be intentional about. That this was not just a project that was going to be a one-time thing, but it was an evergreen type project, right? Because we know that children or immigration is always happening to the U.S., right? Everybody has been coming here since our great ancestors, right? So it's a subject that I thought would always, a film that would always be useful. And so that's kind of what I did. And I really also leaned on people in the community. I told them what I was doing, and I wanted their, not necessarily their financial support, but I wanted to tap into and figure out how my project could help further their work. So I reached out to a lot of teachers and a lot of bilingual counselors. And so that was really helpful, because then it allowed me to also write a very important thing, is that I could describe the audience, not just in a flowery sense or not just because I'm Hispanic, but I was able to get the data and really give a good description of the audience that I was trying to serve. So I think that was also pretty helpful. And so that's kind of been my journey. I am hoping to finish filming here in 2 weeks, and the project will go into being edited. And I can't believe we're gonna do this film. It's surreal. It's surreal. So I'm really excited. And yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I liked what I thought about while you were speaking, Pablo, was this grant gives space and breadth to artists to do your work and to bring it into fruition in a way that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to do because there hasn't been funding dedicated for you to do that work. And we're really excited about the film.
Yeah, and I think one thing that helped me, I was speaking with somebody once and they told me, Paulo, when you're describing a project, be really clear as to what you need. I think I often, in many other projects that I've done, I've always just thought of the minimum that I need, but that then affects many other areas of my life, the way I do partnerships with other creatives and the way, I end up needing other people's work. The way I value myself ultimately ends up influence how I value others. So I think don't risk minimizing the cost of your work, the cost of your experience, and much more, the cost of the weight of your story, because your story alone is very random, right? Very rare here in Chattanooga. So I think that's huge. Just don't go low. Right, Poppy? My son's in the back.
Thank you. You summed it up very well. Any questions for Pablo about his experience with the application or his process as an artist with this grant? Well, thank you.
Curious.
Oh yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, John.
Pablo, I was curious when you're hoping to have the film ready to present, if you have a timeline for it.
Yeah, I'm hoping it'll be sometime November. I'm trying to be really intentional as to how we plan out the distribution, but it'll go into the editing studio here and mid-August. It'll kind of begin, and so you know, my film is, and I think another thing to think about, I'm sorry you weren't even asking me this question, but I don't know if this happens to others, but oftentimes in my case, I feel like I get caught up in how do I make my art make sense to the greater American community? And that has slowed down my work. So I think one thing that I'm doing very specific here is that I am intentionally thinking of my target audience, and that is immigrant children and families. So I don't want to get caught up in, does this language make sense in English? Does this scene make sense in English? You know, because anybody that's familiar with that, working with, you know, different cultures, I don't know if it happens to anybody, you find yourself thinking about that. But this one, I'm trying to be really intentional. And that I think has helped me have better, more realistic deadlines, you know, in terms of the production. Because if I was doing all those things, this would take much longer.
Pablo, we appreciate it. I'm going to go back to screen sharing. We just have a couple more slides, and I'm going to open it up for questions for folks. Okay. So there's benefits of applying even beyond getting grant funding. This REGIA experience of writing the grant and going through the process just prepares you for further opportunities, particularly if this is going to be at one of the first grants you write. There are very standard basic questions that are applicable to other grant opportunities within ArtsBuild or outside of ArtsBuild. So it's a great stepping stone for other grants. It will give you an opportunity to write an artist statement and bring together your portfolio for future endeavors. The other thing is you become part of our network. We do many things beyond grant making. Grant making is a huge part of what we do, but we also have programs and seminars and webinars and things that you can be involved in. We will share your work with the greater Chattanooga area and beyond. And so it gives you a part of the opportunity to be a part of the momentum of ArtsBuild. And as I said, we'll share your work with the greater Chattanooga community. So there's just this last page, it's just contact information, my email, my phone number, our website. I also put it in the chat so that you can explore things on your own and then send any questions that you have. So what I'll do now is just open it up if people have questions about ArtsBuild, the REGIA grant. If perchance you've heard what you've heard today and say, maybe this isn't the grant for us, what are some other granting opportunities? And we can talk about that, and or we can take it via email. Thankfully, maybe we've covered it all. Thank you. Well, we appreciate you jumping on Zoom at this hour. As I said, we're available via email and phone number. And keep an eye out on Monday. It'll go live. We'll post the link via Instagram and Facebook as well to make it really accessible. And as you tinker with it and all the things, reach out. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.